All for One's Guide to a Peaceful Retirement. Written by ScottishSunshine and read for you by Eleanor Elizabeth. Chapter 15. Find an activity to share with your child. Summary. Hisashi has to make a decision about Izuku's quirk. Izuku is aged 4. Papa, how many quirks do you have? Hisashi slowly lowers his paper and almost wishes he hadn't. Izuku is staring at him, green eyes wide and sparkling. Why did he have to inherit those from Inko? Why? Hisashi ponders the best way to respond, because Izuku is asking what every law enforcement agency in the world would kill to know. Kurogiri thankfully comes to his rescue, warping into the room with Izuku's beloved All Might backpack. What did he ever do to deserve a fanboy? Never mind. Izuku, it's time to go. Izuku's face falls, but he does not protest. He finishes his milk and jumps down from his chair, and Hisashi stands up to accept his good morning hug. As Izuku follows Kurogiri out of the room to get his shoes, Hisashi can faintly hear him ask about the range of warp gate. He doesn't bother picking his paper back up. Instead, he frowns, pours himself another cup of coffee, and calls his secretary to let her know that he won't be able to make it into the office. He was older than Izuku when he first discovered his quirk, but then he had hardly been expecting to develop any sort of meta ability. It took years of trial and error to find the drawbacks and limitations, and many more to master it fully. And of course, those years brought with them pain, both mental and physical, pain that he would dearly love to spare Izuku. Really, the present situation is the worst-case scenario. No matter how well behaved he may be, Izuku is still a child. Sooner or later, he'll slip up, and then it's just a matter of time before law enforcement comes knocking, because Izuku is so excited about his quirk, and so curious to find out about how it and others work. He considers taking All for One from his son and wiping the whole table incident from his memory. He can easily falsify medical records after all, and Izuku need not remain quirkless. Inko's quirk is safely tucked away, just waiting to be transferred, and Izuku not returning immediately to daycare can easily be explained away. It's perfectly plausible that Izuku manifesting the same quirk as his recently deceased mother would be rather distressing. Hisashi sets down his coffee and leaves the kitchen. There's a bottle of whiskey waiting in his office. He needs to take Izuku's quirk. But when Izuku arrives home, bright-eyed and eager to tell anyone who'll listen about the zoo, the elephant was even bigger than Makia, and there were baby tigers, he doesn't. He humours Izuku's sleepy request for a bedtime story, and even though his son dozes off midway, he still reads all the way through to the end. Then he quietly closes the book and just sits and watches Izuku sleep. Although he's been trying, he knows he's far from a perfect father. The Bakugo debacle was proof of that. The situation snowballed because Izuku had no one to turn to, no one he could trust. Hisashi reaches out. His hand never shook before, he notes absent-mindedly, but he needs to maintain the illusion of a law-abiding family. He needs to keep the heroes unaware of All for One's possible survival. Izuku's quirk has to... Papa? Izuku is barely audible as he mumbles and rolls over, sound asleep, but Hisashi jerks back as if burnt. His eyes fall on the photo of Inko hanging over Izuku's bed, and suddenly he can't breathe. He needs to get out. He almost trips over his own feet as he hurries from the room. He presses himself to the wall outside, gasping for breath, even as Izuku sleeps on, blissfully unaware. He rakes a hand through his hair, trying to gather the courage to go back in, and does his best to ignore the crushing guilt. He needs to do this, but he keeps seeing Inko's face and the utter betrayal in her eyes, and he can't seem to find the words that would allow her to understand. And then her face slowly morphs, and he can barely make it to the bathroom before he's sick. Kurogiri appears, obviously concerned, but Hisashi can't bring himself to care, because Izuku is smart and intelligent, and he could guess, and Hisashi would never be able to lie to him. All he can see is an older Izuku, an Izuku who looks very much like his mother, who's got absolutely nothing from his father, not even his name. An older Izuku who is staring at him with such betrayal in his eyes. Papa? He hears a familiar voice on the other side of the door and almost throws up again. He somehow swallows down the bile and does his best to keep his voice steady as he calls out, Izuku, go back to bed. But Papa... He sees the door handle move and his blood runs cold. He can't face Izuku. Not now. Something inside him just snaps. Izuku, go to bed! There's a muffled thump on the other side of the door. A a faint sniffle, and then the soft patter of retreating footsteps. Hisashi did not know he could feel worse, but somehow he's managed it. He's never raised a voice at Izuku before. Not once. Not even when he was misbehaving. His son did nothing wrong. Was probably simply concerned for his father. Hisashi groans and leans his head against the toilet. He completely forgets about Kurogiri until the warper clears his throat. I will make a pot of tea. There is no judgment in his tone, no reproach, and Hisashi is somewhat thankful. His own conscience is more than enough. Hisashi does not bother answering, just closes his eyes and tries to figure out how to deal with this mess. Izuku is being a good boy. He sniffles and wipes angrily at his eyes. Tenya doesn't mind that he cries a lot, not like Kachan, but he still doesn't want to be a crybaby, because what if Tenya decides that he's too annoying? Izuku really likes having a friend who doesn't call him names or hurt him. Izuku doesn't know why Papa is angry, but obviously he did something really wrong. He frowns down at his picture. Papa must be really mad because he wasn't there when Izuku came down for breakfast, and he didn't tuck Izuku in last night. Izuku wipes his nose and reaches for his red crayon. If he makes a really nice picture, maybe Papa won't be angry anymore. Izuku, don't wipe your nose on your sleeve. The crayon falls to the floor. Izuku can feel tears gathering, but he doesn't want to make Papa angrier. Kachan's right. He's stupid. He can't do anything right. Oh, Izuku, he hears Papa sigh. He doesn't dare look up at his Papa as he walks over and crouches down next to his chair. Izuku, look at me, please. He doesn't want to, but he also wants to be a good boy, so he obeys. Papa doesn't look angry. In fact, he looks sad as he takes in Izuku's tear-stained face. Oh, Izuku, Papa repeats and pulls him into a tight hug. Izuku goes willingly, clinging to Papa as he sobs and apologizes, and Papa holds him and shushes him and repeats over and over just how much he loves Izuku. Once Izuku has cried himself out, Papa helps him wipe his eyes and blow his nose, and they move to the sofa. Izuku clutches at his plush and moves closer to Papa, who doesn't complain. Izuku, I need to apologize. Why? Izuku frowns and looks up to find Papa watching him with a sad smile. I shouldn't have shouted at you. Papa was sick, and I didn't want you to get ill too, but you were just worried, weren't you? Izuku nods. You just wanted to make sure I was all right. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm very sorry for shouting at you, Izuku. Can you forgive me? Yes! Izuku immediately hugs his Papa, who chuckles. Since I was so mean, I brought you a present. Izuku kind of doesn't want to let go, but he's curious to know what his present is. Papa chuckles again and moves to crouch down in front of him so they are face to face. Now, Izuku, before I give it to you, I need you to understand something about our quirk. It can be really strong, see? So Papa keeps it a secret, because otherwise bad people will want it, and they'll come and hurt us. Can you keep it a secret? Izuku nods hesitantly, although he doesn't quite understand. Good. Papa smiles and ruffles his hair. You're such a smart boy. If anyone asks, tell them you're like your mum, all right? Izuku nods again, this time with more confidence. Obviously, it's not lying if Papa says he should say so, and Izuku can do that. Besides, taking quirks isn't really impressive. It's kind of scary. Izuku doesn't want Tenya to think he's a thief, because thieves are villains. Now, quirks are fascinating, aren't they? Yeah! Izuku immediately smiles and nods eagerly. I want to know all about them, then I can be the bestest hero. You are definitely my son, Papa mutters with a smile. Izuku isn't sure what's so funny, but grown-ups are strange. He's quickly distracted anyway. Papa hands him his gift, and Izuku gasps. It's a really pretty notebook with a fancy black cover and a clasp, and gold letters that Izuku recognizes from the label on his coat. I thought you could write your notes about quirks in this. Izuku is about to take it, but then he realizes something and looks down guiltily. Papa, I can't write. Papa gasps. Oh, I'm so sorry, Izuku. I forgot you haven't learnt yet. Izuku wishes he hadn't said anything. Perhaps Papa will still let him keep the notebook. He might not be able to write in it, but he could draw heroes with cool quirks, and his future hero costumes. He's about to suggest as much when Papa snaps his fingers. Of course. Since this is all my fault, I'll just have to write the notes for you. Then, when you can write them yourself, you can take over. We'll have to set aside time every day for the note-taking. Izuku almost knocks Papa over as he launches himself at him. The idea of learning about quirks is awesome, especially if he has a pretty notebook for observations. But the idea of Papa spending time every day helping him with his notes is even better. Chapter 16. Make sure your help feel appreciated. Summary. Kurogiri contemplates his new life. Izuku, aged 4. Kurogiri was always sure growing up that he knew what his future held. He would be a villain, not because he had some insatiable desire for money or destruction, or because he hated the world around him, but because he had to. His father, a petty criminal in Kyoto, made the most of his son's quirk until he finally got caught. Kurogiri enjoyed his time in foster care until he was told his father would be released. Then he ran away to Tokyo. Petty crime became his only real means of survival, and any dreams he might have of becoming a cook in some small, quaint cafe were ruthlessly squashed. He needed to remain emotionless to survive, he knew. But when he finally decided that he needed to swear his loyalty to the fearsome All-for-One, he never expected his role would be some sort of glorified butler/babysitter/taxi. And yeah, here he was, loading the washing machine with dirty bedding whilst comforting a tearful child, rather than lying dead in a ditch or languishing in Tartarus. "It's all right," he assures Izuku as he switches on the appliance. "Accidents happen. Come on, I'll make you a bed on the sofa." Like most crises in the Midoriya household, it all started with Gigantomachia. In this case, at least, it did not entail significant property damage. Instead, he came thundering down the stairs shouting, "Little Lord is dying!" Because everyone present was familiar with Gigantomachia, there was no immediate panic. Midoriya, and it was still so strange to call All-for-One by name, lowered his coffee cup and with a sigh gestured for Kurogiri to go check on Izuku, which Kurogiri did once he had switched off the stove. As it turned out, Izuku had come down with the flu, and so had to stay home from daycare, which, since his father had a meeting with some politicians, and probably couldn't reschedule without creating a significant risk to civilian life as a suitable diversion, meant Kurogiri had to stay home, and Gigantomachia needed to go, because Gigantomachia should only be left alone with Izuku for short periods, with very clear instructions, once Midoriya has considered all the possible outcomes. Kurogiri liked the giant well enough, but he was a walking disaster. Of course, Gigantomachia protested, but Midoriya is a master of twisting facts to his advantage. Kurogiri suspects this is not so much a result of his successful career as a villain, but more necessitated by several years interacting with his bodyguard. Kurogiri does not mind the change of plans. Midoriya may be a better boss than expected, but he has no illusions. From the moment Inko Midoriya answered the door, his fate was sealed. All-for-One is hardly going to allow him to waltz off into the sunset after learning his greatest secret. But, he reflects as he tucks Izuku in, it could be worse. He may not be happy, but there is an odd sort of contentment about his current domesticity. He's an opportunist, pure and simple. He never cared about All-for-One's ideology, or admired the man himself, not like Gigantomachia. And yet, out of the whole household, he probably has the most in common with the giant. Kurogiri smiles and straightens a photo of Inko. "You should not be here," Gigantomachia explains. "Go away, mist man." Kurogiri tries not to take it personally, even if he sighs at the nickname. How come Izuku could remember his name, and the decades-old deadly giant insists on calling him a name straight out of a children's book? Midoriya is not particular about where the groceries come from, only that Izuku has a well-balanced diet, and Kurogiri takes advantage of the credit card that he's been issued. True, he could probably be quicker, but you can taste the difference. However, it is important that he gets the fish in the fridge as soon as possible, and having Gigantomachia block the kitchen door is not appreciated. In fact, the giant seems determined not to let him in, and Kurogiri nearly drops one of his bags as he tries to get past the larger man. He almost falls flat on his butt as Gigantomachia pushes him back. And then, as if he has not been through enough humiliation in his life, the man grabs him under the shoulders and carries him out of the house, drops him on the doorway, and promptly slams the front door in his face. Kurogiri stares at it, flummoxed. Gigantomachia is odd at the best of times, but he also has no idea what prompted this. He sighs briefly and considers just taking the hint and going somewhere to get blind drunk. Then he warps into the kitchen. Locking someone out tends to be more effective when said person cannot teleport. The kitchen is his refuge. He's the only one with an interest in cooking, and Gigantomachia can barely fit in the room. Midoriya is a perfectly adequate cook, but Kurogiri is the only member of the household now who enjoys flipping through the magazines, testing new recipes and just creating. Perhaps one day Izuku will be interested in joining him, but for now at least, the kitchen is regarded by everyone as Kurogiri's room. So, when he steps into the kitchen, he does not expect to find someone brandishing an egg whisk at him. "What the—" Midoriya mutters. "Shouldn't you be shopping?" The kitchen, his beautiful, perfect kitchen, looks like a war zone. The smell of burning something hangs in the air, and flour and sugar are spilt all over the counters and floor. Midoriya's hair is dishevelled and distinctly whiter than before. The man looks positively haggard in his lilac apron. Izuku, in contrast, is positively beaming. Inko's apron is far too big on him, but as he's standing on a chair, it at least doesn't trail on the floor. There's coloured icing smeared on his cheeks, like some feeble attempt at war paint. It's very hard to feel content as Kurogiri looks at the kitchen and realises how many hours it will take to clean up the mess. He really should have just taken the hint and gone to get drunk. "Happy birthday, Kurogiri!" Izuku cheers, and then he frowns. "But you have to go away while we bake your cake!" Kurogiri stares at the boy, dumbfounded. He doesn't celebrate his birthday, he doesn't even know when. "What do you mean you don't know?" Inko huffs. "You have to know when you were born." "I'm sorry, ma'am." Kurogiri shifts anxiously. He kind of wants to warp away. But Izuku is studying his fingers, fascinated, and he doesn't want to know how All for One would react if he dropped his son, or kidnapped him, even accidentally. "Oh, don't apologise," Inko groans. "And don't call me ma'am, it makes me feel old." She finishes folding her washing and pauses to examine Kurogiri. He shifts under her scrutiny and almost panics when she smiles. "Well, then today's your birthday," she declares and vanishes off into her closet. Kurogiri can only stare after her, dumbfounded, especially when she emerges a second later with some sort of parcel. "Happy birthday!" she cheers and presents it to him. "Happy!" Izuku shouts. "And once Hisashi's back, I'll teach you how to bake a cake." "Kurogiri, do you not like your cake?" Izuku asks as Kurogiri wipes at his eyes. "No, He pauses to swallow. "I like cake. I like it a lot. But I like baking it even more." "Wonderful." Midoriya's shoulders slump in relief. "What do we do first?" Kurogiri takes in the man's haggard appearance and reaches a decision. "You can get out of my kitchen," Kurogiri informs him. "There might still be hope for Izuku, but..." It says a lot that Midoriya doesn't protest. As he helps Izuku measure out the flour, Kurogiri smiles. Perhaps he can be happy after all. Chapter 17. Recruit, recruit, recruit. Summary. A familiar face returns, and Izuku gains a new friend. Izuku, aged 4. The biggest challenge of civilian life, Hisashi muses as he steps onto the elevator, is resisting the temptation to murder foolish upstarts. It's become easier over the years, especially when he knows Izuku is waiting in his office. And it's still such a novel concept, having an actual office, with a desk, and a secretary. "Mister!" Someone tugs on his jacket and slowly, ever so slowly, he looks down. Why does it feel like he started collecting children? The youngest Todoroki beams at him, recognisable despite the now black hair, and Hisashi can only despair. He knows the child snuck up on him because he's no threat. Hisashi could end him with the flick of a wrist. If he keeps reminding himself of that, perhaps it will make him feel better about how much his instincts have dulled in the past few years. Or he could just ask Izuku for a hug. Izuku's hugs do make everything better. "What is it?" Hisashi asks with a sigh, and the lift dings as the doors open. "Thank you for punching my father." The boy grins as he follows Hisashi like a little duckling, or lamb to the slaughter. "You're welcome," he sighs. He's about to instruct his secretary to contact the former Mrs. Todoroki when an idea occurs to him. He slowly crouches before the young boy and asks, ignoring his secretary's muffled giggles, because he's a retired supervillain, and just because his fiendish plans aren't quite as ambitious as before, it doesn't mean they're any less impressive. "Tell me, Todoroki, how do you feel about heroes?" "My name's not Todoroki," the kid insists, because, of course, that's the most important issue at hand. He puffs his chest up, and with that stubborn tilt of the head that makes Hisashi's fatherly instincts scream in terror, he declares, "My name is Shoto Yukiyama." Well, at least the former Mrs. Todoroki was smart enough to change her name. Wonderful, Hazashi answers and stands up. He's relieved when he opens the door to find Izuku and Gigantomachia are only drawing, spread out on the floor. He just hopes that none of the papers are important documents. Gigantomachia can somehow turn the most innocent activity into a crisis. Papa! Izuku exclaims as he looks up from his paper, that wonderful smile on his face. Then he spots Toda Yukiyama and frowns, obviously puzzled. Who's that? Izuku, this is Shoto, Hazashi informs his son as he clambers to his feet. I'm going to go find his mum, so play nicely for now, alright? Okay! Izuku chirps like the beam of sunshine that he is, and then dashes forward and hugs his father. Hazashi allows himself to enjoy it, and ignores the sneaking suspicion that he has a goofy smile on his face. Then his son lets him go and turns his green eyes on Shoto. The other boy is hesitant at first, but Izuku is, well, Izuku, and soon manages to coax him forward. Hazashi tries not to dwell on how Shoto perks up when Izuku offers him his All Might plush. The Public Relations Department is in a state of what could only be best described as organised chaos. Hazashi's not entirely sure who thought Shoto might be hiding in the paper shredders, although he's glad he left Izuku upstairs. No need to give him any ideas about indoor snow. The mother, at least, is easy to locate. She has a rather bad hair dye job. She's sitting next to her supervisor, and she looks like she's on the verge of a panic attack. And Hazashi wishes he couldn't relate quite so well. Yukiyama? He asks, and her head shoots up. He almost expects her to keel over as the colour drains from her face. I believe I have something of yours, he states, and has to desperately stamp down on his glee as absolute silence falls. At least he can still inspire fear. I'm so sorry, Rei blurts out, and Hazashi sighs as she starts to sob. This is his life now, stray kids and over-emotional women. It's fine, he assures her as he swipes a box of tissue from one of the desks. He really shouldn't have gotten out of the habit of carrying several packs around, but they remind him too much of Inko. And if he happens to notice that Inko's crying was a lot more attractive than the former Mrs. Todoroki, well, no one will ever know. I'm so sorry, the woman repeats. I swear, I never brought him in before. My babysitter cancelled and I didn't know what to do. It's fine, Hazashi cuts in. He may be a little sharp, but it does the trick. He sighs again. He has a lot less practice comforting panicking mothers than mentally torturing people. I have no intention of firing you. I'd just like you to retrieve Shoto before he burns down my office. At least motherly indignation snaps her out of her fretting over job security. She draws herself up and in a frosty tone declares, I'll have you know that Shoto is very well behaved. It's not Shoto I'm worried about. Hazashi shrugs and turns away. He can hear the woman sputter and hurry to catch up to him. He doesn't slow his pace. He knows Izuku, present him with an interesting quirk, and there's no stopping him. And he knows full well who Izuku takes after. It's strange how pride can mix so well with terror. The lift ride passes in silence. Hazashi can tell the woman is more than a little worried about how she spoke to him, but he has his own concerns. Surely Gigantomachia knows not to let them experiment in his office. Surely fear of his lord's disapproval will overrule his fondness for Izuku. Thankfully, nothing is on fire when he opens the door. Izuku is practically vibrating with excitement, bombarding Shoto with questions, which the other boy doesn't even seem to be trying to answer. Gigantomachia is watching them with a beaming smile, seemingly unaware of the large patch of ice covering the floor. Shoto! The former Mrs. Todoroki exclaims, rushing over to her son, and almost slipping on the ice. Hazashi wonders if the cleaners will be able to remove it, or if there's some sort of specialist company that his secretary should call. Izuku's smile seems to dim as he watches the mother and son, and it cuts Hazashi to the core. But then he perks up and rushes over to his father. Papa, guess what? He exclaims, green eyes sparkling as he tugs at Hazashi's jacket. Shoto wants to be a hero too, and his quirk is so cool, and he loves All Might too. Wonderful, Hazashi sighs and ruffles his son's curls. Another one for the peanut gallery. And Shoto's never had cake before. Izuku frowns, obviously outraged, and Hazashi feels a smile tug at his lips at the adorable sight. So I said he could come to my birthday party. And then, in a move that has Hazashi's heart brimming with pride, Izuku looks up at him, green eyes wide and gleaming. Can he, Papa? Please? Intentional or not, such blatant manipulation needs to be encouraged. They have years to work on refining technique. Izuku is smart enough that a few lessons on human psychology should go a long way. "What say you, Yukiyama?" Hisashi asks the woman, who just looks at him puzzled. Izuku's birthday is next week, and apparently he'd like Shoto to attend. "May I, Mama?" The boy in question tugs on his mother's hand. "Please!" Izuku hurries back over. "It'll be fun, and you don't even have to bring me a present." The woman hesitates as two pairs of wide eyes gaze up at her. Then Shoto frowns. "But it's your birthday," he points out as he turns to Izuku. "Yeah, but..." Izuku shrugs, and then an idea seems to occur to him. "Do you want to be friends?" "Yes!" Shoto immediately nods, and Izuku beams as he spins back to look at Hisashi. "Papa, I got a new friend!" he exclaims, and then turns back to Shoto. "Legos are fun, but I'd rather you be my friend, so you gave me a present." Shoto beams himself, obviously delighted, and then looks up at his mother. "Mama, I got a friend!" "And if you come, you can meet Tenya," Izuku continues. "He's my friend too, and nice, and you can be friends with him too, and then we'll all be friends." "Mama, can I go, please?" Shoto tugs on his mother's hand. "Please, please." "If Mr. Midoriya doesn't mind." The woman agrees hesitantly, and Shoto smiles. It's a small smile, nothing like Izuku's beaming smile as he cheers and grabs a hold of Shoto's hand. But Hisashi knows it must mean the world to Yukiyama. There will be so many more years of tears, of irrational fear, perhaps even despair. But there will be more moments like this. Izuku chattering away, telling Shoto about his best friend. Moments that make it all worth it. Moments that, as a parent, you sear into your memory so you never forget. And as he passes Yukiyama a box of tissues, Hisashi knows Inko would be proud. Chapter 18. It's worth it. Summary. Izuku's birthday party is the perfect time for him to introduce his new friend to Tenya. Izuku is 5. Izuku isn't entirely sure an aquarium would be a fun place for a birthday party. How fun can looking at fishies be after all? But Tenya said it would be educational, and Shota said he wanted to see penguins, and Papa seemed certain Izuku would like it. "Right, Izuku, hold on to my hand," Papa instructs as he lifts Izuku off his shoulders. "We need to wait here for your friends, and then a very special person will come meet us and tell us all about the fish." Izuku's still not convinced how fun it'll be, but he soon spots Shoto and waves him over. "Happy birthday!" his new friend wishes him, still clutching his mum's hand. Izuku isn't sure why he seems so scared, because no one is yelling, but he can understand being shy, since he remembers how nervous he was the first time he met Tenya, and if Shoto is worried with him like he was with Tenya, then all he has to do is be an awesome friend. "Tenya will be here soon," Izuku informs Shoto with a smile. Shoto will probably be nervous around Tenya after all, so Izuku needs to let him know his best friend is nice and not scary at all, even if he can be kind of loud. "Tenya's my best friend, and he has an awesome quirk, and he's going to be a hero too," he gasps as an idea occurs to him. "We could all be heroes together!" The idea is so wonderful, Izuku can't wait till Tenya arrives to tell him. They'll have to start thinking about hero names and moves, and he still needs to figure out how Shoto's quirk works, and... "Izuku, you're muttering." Papa gently tugs at his hand, and Izuku snaps out of his musings. Papa had laughed when he'd first found out about it, and said he used to do the same thing when he was small, so Izuku doesn't feel embarrassed about muttering anymore. Kachan was obviously wrong when he said it was freaky, because Papa's not freaky. Papa is trying to help him stop doing it though, even if there's no rush, because if he has to fight a villain who has really good hearing, the villain might overhear Izuku's plan. Papa is so smart to think of it. Izuku made sure to give him extra hugs when he agreed to help Izuku stop muttering. Izuku returns to his searching of the entrance room and cheers when he spots Tensei. He grabs Shoto's hand and pulls him and, because he's a good boy, Papa over to the Ida brothers. Hisashi goes willingly, barely controlling his snickering. "Happy birthday, Izuku!" Tenya grins at his friend and then pauses when he notices the unfamiliar boy next to him. "Hi Tenya! Hi Tensei!" Izuku beams. "This is Shoto. He wants to be a hero too." Then he frowns as he remembers the shocking discovery he made earlier. "And he's never had cake!" Tenya gasps, suitably horrified, and Tensei lets out an undignified snort at the expression on the boys' faces. Said snorting only gets worse when two pairs of large eyes turn to him, outraged. Hisashi is so grateful for all those showdowns against One-for-All users. They did wonders for his poker face. "I'm Tenya, and this is my brother Tensei," Tenya introduces himself, and then leans closer to Shoto and adds in a hushed voice, "He's a hero, with a license." Shoto looks suitably impressed, glancing up at the young man who grins and waves, and Izuku beams. He might not know why Shoto is scared and sad, but Tenya can help. Tenya helped Izuku when Kachan made him feel sad, and now Izuku knows all about what a good friend is like. Tickets have been paid for, so how about we go find the guide, Papa suggests. I think you'll really like him, Izuku. Izuku still isn't convinced, but he follows Papa through the turnstiles and into the lift. Tenya is excitedly telling Shoto about Ingenium, whilst Tensei pretends not to hear. Shoto glancing up at the young hero with increasing admiration. As soon as the lift opens, Izuku gasps. It's Gang Orca! The hero is hovering awkwardly by the first tank, dressed in civilian clothes and with a name tag pinned to his shirt. Most of the patrons are giving him a wide berth. Izuku immediately makes a run over to him, stops halfway, runs back, and grabs Shoto's hand. Rei Yukiyama has to laugh at the adorable sight, especially when Tenya catches up to them and grabs her son's free hand. Hisashi has no time to coo, though. There are pictures to be taken. Hi, Mr. Gang Orca, sir! Izuku greets the hero with a beaming smile and sparkling eyes. I'm Izuku, and this is my best friend Tenya, and my new friend Shoto. We're going to be heroes! We're the 11 o'clock tour, Papa supplies as the adults join them. Mrs. Yukiyama is wiping her eyes, and Izuku would wonder if she's sick, but she's obviously excited to meet a hero. Izuku can completely understand crying when you're really happy. He'll have to make sure to get her an autograph too. Ah, yes, Gang Orca smiles. Izuku thinks he's smiling at least. It's kind of hard to tell. Now, have any of you boys visited before? It's educational. If I don't become a hero, I'll be a rayologist. That's not a real title, Tenya, Tensei laughs. His brother's frown only deepens as he draws himself up to his full height. It will be when I grow up. Izuku smiles from where he's watching the two. Tenya really liked the manta rays, and Izuku can kind of see why, because they were really big and really cool. He had a hard time deciding on a favourite, because apparently the sea has lots of awesome animals, not all of which were fish. Finally, he settled on jellyfishes, because they were really pretty, although he made sure to tell Gang Orca just how hard it was to decide between them and orcas, which are dolphins? He can't wait to tell Miss Tanaka. Shoto has already left, proudly carrying his brand new penguin plush. Izuku still does not understand why the grown-ups wouldn't let Shoto free some of the penguin enclosure if their cooling machine wasn't working. Penguins like ice, after all. But Shoto still really liked them, and promptly declared that when he became a hero, he'll be the ice hero, Penguin. Izuku yawns and frowns as he thinks about Shoto's mom. He still doesn't quite know why she needed tissues earlier when Tenya told her that Shoto's awesome, or why she excused herself when the three of them posed together. But then grown-ups are strange, Izuku knows. Right, Izuku, time to go, Papa tells him and lifts him up. Izuku waves sleepily at the two brothers as they say goodbye. Papa doesn't seem to mind carrying him, so Izuku wraps his arm around Papa's neck and makes himself comfortable. He's tired, and kind of wants to sleep, but he also really needs to tell Papa something. Papa, I like the aquarium, he admits, and smiles as he feels Papa chuckle. But there's more. He can feel his eyes drifting closed, but this is important. I love you, Papa. You're the best Papa ever. Yes, Izuku reflects as he drifts off to sleep. Grown-ups really are strange. Why would Papa cry if Izuku just told him the truth?